Anna Seawolf, and this is Authentic Parenting, a podcast about personal development in the context of parenting, where I explore how you can find more calm, connection, and joy in parenting through the process of self-discovery and inner growth with a trauma-informed lens. On today's on-air coaching call, I am helping Adriana, a mom of 2 kids, ages 2 and 4, with limit setting. Setting limits is big and essential part of parenting. What does setting limits really mean? Why do we have to set limits? In today's episode, I'm trying to demystify the limit setting process by using real-life scenarios. For example, screen time. Setting limits doesn't have to be unpleasant. You don't have to be harsh or angry when setting a limit. It's all about knowing your why, staying calm and present, communicating the limit with compassion, and holding the limit with firmness, knowing that kids will have emotional reactions. You don't have to feel guilty or even give in. In fact, I suggest using playfulness and humor as strategy. Let's get social. Take a screenshot right now of this episode and share it on social media. Don't forget to tag me. I'll share your post on my channels and give you a shout out. If you are on Spotify, I have created a public playlist of all the on-air coaching episodes of 2019. Simply search for on-air coaching episodes of Authentic Parenting Podcast and you're good to go. To apply for an on-air coaching session for the podcast, go to authenticparenting.com/coaching. I want to hear from you. How are you enjoying the recent episodes of the podcast? I would prefer audio feedback, and I will respond to you with an audio message as well. To leave a voicemail, call the number 732-763-2576 for U.S. residents, and for international listeners, go to authenticparenting.com/contact and use the free SpeakPipe tool on that page. For full episode show notes, additional free resources on parenting, contact info, and ways to work with me, visit authenticparenting.com. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And now, please enjoy this on-air coaching episode with Adriana. Audrey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very excited to talk with you.
Great. I'm excited too. I haven't done a coaching episode in a long time and I'm itching to do one. So let's chit chat a little bit. You have 2 children, correct?
I do. So I have 2 girls, ages 2 and 4. They turned 2 and 4 during the beginning of the pandemic. And so I work part-time and then I'm home with them full-time, it feels like. We haven't had any help since this pandemic started. So it's been challenging.
I see. So what are some of the current challenges that you face that we can discuss today on the podcast? And hopefully I will be helpful in some way.
Sure. Thank you. So we live in a very small apartment, which makes, our interactions, we're on top of each other all the time. Been challenging. My little one still takes like a afternoon nap. And so it's challenging, being quiet in the apartment while she naps. And my eldest gets very frustrated to be, indoors. And so she wants to be on the screen, watch videos. And at the beginning of the pandemic, so in March, we were allowing her to watch for a few hours. We were like, okay, this is temporary. We need a little time to rest. So we were more lenient in giving her more time to, watch PBS and Disney, but then realized that it was like, this is not a temporary thing. This is going to be on for months. And it has been going on for a month. So we decided to, or at least I decided that we needed to put more screen limits, and that cost a lot of pushback. And so the main challenges that we get is just lots of like rage or anger after we set a limit and say, okay, once, she'll say, okay, well, we'll just watch one show. But at the end of a show, she just goes like crazy. We'll start like screaming, punching, throwing things, and it's usually when my little one naps that it's just very upsetting, because we want, normally I guess the screams and the things wouldn't be as upsetting as it is when we want it to be quiet. And so it's just a very difficult situation.
Is she having hard time when you set limits at other times as well?
So that's the thing. We don't really set that many limits aside from, I guess we don't really set that many limits, I would say.
Okay. So tell me more a little bit then.
Sure.
How do you parent? What does setting limits mean to you? And how do you set the limit?
Oh, so I mean, like, maybe I would say, like, we don't really set, like, I think in this sense is like a harsh limit, because it's like, okay, it's just this and that's it. Oftentimes she'll, like, if she wants a second ice cream, we'll say, okay, I guess it's fine. Like, it's not, this is not a matter that we want to have an argument about. Or if she wants to stay a little bit more at the playground and there's really no reason for a rush, then we'll allow. So I guess she gets a little sense that she can push the envelope if she needs to, or if she so tries.
Because
in the past, it's very hard.
Because she has learned, because you have allowed that to happen, right?
Right.
The consistency is not there. I think a lot of us have that problem as parents, because we want to parent in a peaceful way,
right.
which I'm assuming you are also, right? However, our programming, our upbringing it was not the peaceful way. It was authoritarian.
Yes.
And especially when we come from that kind of background, it's like this two big extremes. We vacillate. We are very nice and peaceful and loving and caring until like it's like that very last moment, and we resort to being super authoritarian, and it's a harsh no. So there is no middle ground. I see this pattern a lot, especially in today's parenting.
It's just so hard, because you absolutely agree. Growing up, it was like, this is the rule and you can't break it. And if you break it, you're bad, or you're, disobedient, or X, Y, or Z. And I'm truly trying to move away from that. But it's just very challenging. Because most things I don't really have like a strong preference. And I realize that it's very challenging, or very, like, it's impossible to control little kids. Like, if I say, eat your vegetables, she's not going to do it, right? So I'm just like, okay, I can encourage and, but it's.
So I have a lot to say about this. We will talk about setting limits, holding that limit, and then listening to the child's feelings, because they are going to have a feeling about that. But before we get to setting the limit part, I feel like we need to do a little bit of examination of when to set the limit, because it's very different for every person, right? But there are still guiding points, like, in my opinion, that every parent can agree upon, right? When it comes to your children's safety and security. Definitely every parent will set the hard limit there. You won't allow your child to run in a parking lot, right? Or ride his bicycle outside, or things like that.
Right.
So there are those points that everybody can agree upon. But I think predominantly setting limits is a very personal thing. And why we set those limits is rooted in our values as parents and in our goals as parents. Because for somebody, doing X could be totally acceptable in their
Right.
households. Like having a second ice cream for somebody might be like, why not? It's okay. For them, that's not that. Or maybe they haven't thought about it, why it's not a good idea. But maybe for somebody, having that second serving of ice cream is a hard no. Maybe
Yeah.
because healthy eating is a value. They don't believe in
Right, for sure.
sugar
But I
and
feel
things like that. Examining your values, and you are a pediatrician, right? So
I
you know,
am.
so you know these things. So in order to set limits, I think we need to know the why behind when we say no to our kids.
Right.
We have to be clear on those things ourselves in order to communicate to our children. Otherwise, we're going to vacillate between this and that. We're going to be wishy-washy. We're not going to be consistent. And our children are going to learn that pattern very quickly. And they're going to stretch those limits as much as they can. They're going to push back and fight and disagree, and that's going to be a very challenging situation.
Absolutely.
But it's not the child's responsibility. It is our responsibility to set those limits and structures and expectations so clearly and hold them clearly so that children, in the beginning, they will push, but then they will internalize, and that will be the norm. And again, we don't want to create set limits and create those artificial limits all the time, right? And that's also not healthy. That's control.
Right.
And we can talk about autonomy today too, because one of the basic human needs is that sense of that need of autonomy. And children, we want to honor that need in children and give them as much autonomy as possible. And as I always talk about needs, what is the opposite of autonomy is control. When children feel controlled, then they are going to push back, and because they want that sense of autonomy, control over their life and choices and things like that. But the why matters a lot.
Absolutely. And that's why it's challenging, because sometimes things seem arbitrary, or it's very hard to be a parent sometimes.
Yes, it is. And this is a very tricky area. But examining the why, starting with that, I think it is key. And there are 4 areas I feel like parents can set limits with confidence.
Sure.
It's health. When it comes to your children's health, again, it's very personal. What you value, what is healthy eating, healthy lifestyle mean to you?
Yeah.
Maybe you don't believe in fast food at all, and you don't want to expose your children to fast food.
It's funny. So my daughter's been saying that when she is older, she's going to drink Coca-Cola. Like, this is so funny. But that's the thing. It's like I feel like sometimes I feel that the more we restrict, the more that kids then decide to rebel on their own. And that's why I find it challenging.
Because when we control them, there's 2 outcomes.
Right.
Either they rebel or they learn to be very obedient. There's no middle ground.
Exactly.
And so, but by giving them autonomy, we can honor their choices and them as individuals. It's the thing, right? Restrictions. Have you examined why those restrictions? Have you out loud discussed it with someone or with your partner? Or you just know as a pediatrician that sugar is not good and that's it, and we're against sugar, and we can never have drinks? Where do you stand? And when do you want to put those restrictions? Where are the areas that you put those restrictions?
So you want to know my
I do want to
answers. Yeah. So we don't have juice or soda at home. We have the girls really love the seltzer water with fruit flavors, which again, I'm not, it's fine if they have it once a day. I'm not a fan of them drinking it all the time. And we've really liberalized, controlling snacks, or we didn't used to have ice cream all the time, and now they have it, every night before bed. And I think, I've been moving back and forth on this. The more that kids have, things on a regular basis, the less it becomes this like attractive thing that they want to then binge on or so I think we're trying to, have things in moderation. Obviously, we we have family meals and we have vegetables and good food that they regularly eat, but we'll allow them to have snacks on moderation or with
Mm-hmm.
moderation.
Mm-hmm. So the value for you is having healthy, balanced diets.
Right.
And your need, what is your need behind that? When you don't give
Sure.
them
Like,
sugar and things like that,
right. That
like,
I want to promote health and well-being. And I don't believe that sugary drinks are bad for many reasons. And so,
mm-hmm,
and also promote healthy habits, right? Drinking water and
mm-hmm.
um, eating a varied diet.
Yeah, yeah. And these are all great. So health is one of the areas where we need to be clear on our values, our goals, and our needs, right?
Sure.
And
Sure.
it looks different for everyone, and so, but knowing where you stand, I think is key.
Oh, absolutely. I think, yeah, some things are clearer than others.
True.
Yes. And the ones that are less clear or more,
For example, what's less clear?
duration at a park. And I've realized sometimes when it starts getting close to lunchtime, I start getting like hangry. And then I regret not having gone home when I first proposed,
Yes.
because then I lose it. I get home and I'm like so hungry / like tired, and it's very challenging. And so, and like recognizing my own limits and trying to, come from a place of, understanding those and understanding that, for me to be a better parent, I need to follow some, like, listen to myself as well.
True.
And I think those
Yes.
are, and I think also being home all the time is also, we feed on each other's like stress, or the girls feed on, at least my eldest, like really senses my stress, and
Mm.
she'll act out when she finds that I'm feeling stressed. And so,
Yes, they do, because the
um,
emotions are contagious, and
absolutely,
energy is contagious. Your energy can
absolutely.
shift the energy of everyone around you, and especially if you have a small space, I think the priority has to become your own well-being, your own energy, your own vibe, so to speak, right? Right? Your own stress management.
Sure.
I think that, but then you have two little children to take care of, and they are demanding, and they have their own
Right.
needs. So it becomes very challenging.
Yes.
It's not an easy thing. So I think in this kind of dire situations, you have to really prioritize and not be, maybe not parent the old way. As I
Yeah.
say now, we're parenting in crisis. So our
Right.
priorities have shifted a lot, right? But it's hard.
Yes, but it's hard because this might go on for a while, right? And so initially it was this,
Mm-hmm.
a measure that we could take on for a few months, but now it's become more of a way of living.
And this
Um,
is why, even knowing that, I think creating a rhythm, creating new structures that work
sure.
with this new way, I think is imperative, because the old ways are not going to work. They worked because you were sending your children maybe to daycare or preschool. You had a lot of,
Right.
it was a
Yes.
different way
Yes.
of living. But now
Absolutely.
you're in the, how can you, with the current circumstances and not knowing what's ahead of us, create some kind of structure and a rhythm? I think rhythm is key. I'm not in favor of hard structures, because then nobody can follow those hard structures, and we're going to be frustrated and things are going to go out of control.
Right.
But having a certain rhythm to your day and anchoring points to your day and reprioritizing, I think is key. For example, the nap time, coordinating with your 4-year-old's TV viewing sounds
Right.
like a clash, because, right, it's not the perfect time, maybe,
But
because
it's why do you see it? Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
because if your child is napping and you have a small space, and if you allow your daughter to watch the TV and now it's ending and she's going to have this gigantic reaction, then maybe this is not the time for her
I
to watch the
know.
TV.
But then we get no rest, because otherwise, she doesn't want to nap or rest. And so it's funny, at that initially, at the beginning of the pandemic, she would watch TV for hours while the little one napped, which
Mm-hmm.
was usually like 2 hours. And then I would go for a walk and I would
Mm-hmm.
like do meditation during that time. And I felt so refreshed coming home. But
Mm-hmm.
then I would feel guilty. Oh, she's been watching this like show. And it's like, oh, this like, sometimes I would feel like, oh, maybe she gets more aggressive after we turn off the screen, or I go back and forth whether, how much the TV impacts her and her behavior. And so that's when I was like, okay, no more of this. But then it's more work for me because then I have to take her out,
Mm-hmm.
go to a park or go for ice cream. And it's just a lot more work. And I honestly don't need more work at this time.
No, I think you don't need more work. Maybe you can switch the time when she can watch the TV and not coordinate with the nap time. But maybe you
Yeah.
can create rest period for her, and it doesn't involve TV. More quiet activities.
Yeah.
It may be a little bit of hard to create that kind of culture anew.
Yes.
But I think it's a really good skill to have as a child, and as an
Absolutely.
adult. Learn how to be with yourself, learn how to relax and rest without necessarily taking a nap. It doesn't have to be taking a nap. You can rest.
But how do you explain that? So she's so, she's a very active, she loves attention and having people around her and having one-on-one interactions, which is wonderful. It's just very, draining when it's all day, every day.
Does she play independently at all?
Not really. A little bit. It's
Mm.
funny. Our little one will like play with her babies, and she loves to, play solo for a while. Our eldest just wants, I guess, because she grew up as a single child for 2 years, and at the time we were all around her all the time. And so I don't know how much is like nature or nurture, but she's not, she requests a lot of attention.
And does she get a lot of attention when she requests it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, how can you encourage more solo time, more independent playtime, more independent activity time? I think in the beginning it may be hard, and you may have to participate in order for this to sink in, to cultivate, right? Sort of to work. If you just say, go to your room and play with your toys, it's not going to work completely. Like, we have to be realistic here. You have to sort of ease her in. You have to shadow her a little bit and help her see that this is a possibility. But first and foremost, I would love to know, in your small space, could you possibly have a little corner, and maybe you do, where she can do freely, she can do art, puzzles, or a little reading nook or something like that can encourage this independent time.
Sure. The challenge is that her room is next door to our little one's room. And so it's not, and I don't, it's just hard if she plays there, she gets loud and then she drops things and she wakes up. So it's very hard. So that's why, again, I think a lot of this is like gotten worse due to our living environment.
I could see that challenge. Yeah. But how about...
She could do it in our bedroom, but then she wants our attention, and she can play on the iPad. I just,
I think I would prefer this.
So we're not electronic.
Yes, no electronic.
I agree. Absolutely. I agree.
Right? Not associating being calm and, being with yourself with electronics, because it's just very passive consumption. And it would be hard for a child, 4-year-old, something to do. Maybe then you can, as an adult, instead of saying, this is your room, go rest, and this is how we rest, you can sort of pre-select certain things that she can do that don't make noise, right? It could be reading, coloring, art, or puzzles. I don't know. I'm just throwing
and she loves doing those things. Yes, but when she directs
Or open-ended toys, building
Sure.
things, starting a project and seeing it grow, or
Yeah.
dress up things, making things that take time and attention and devotion and dedication.
Yeah.
That's a type of games and activities I would love for this
Yeah.
4-year-old to have, so that there is this continuity. And of course, if the space is too crowded, if you have too many things, then she's not going to be engaged with any of the toys.
Mm-hmm.
My first order of things would be to take a look at your space. Let's say that's their bedroom, that's their
Yeah.
playroom. If they have too many things, too many colorful things,
Yes.
maybe start by decluttering.
Yeah.
I think this is a fundamental thing.
Yeah.
If you want to encourage solo play, you have to have less things. The
I
lesser,
agree.
the better. Let's say
Yes.
5 to 7 playthings or items, because
Yeah.
the less they have, the more engaged their play becomes. They explore more. And if you
So
have the
interesting.
more quality of the type of toys, more open-ended toys that are not fixed, stupid toys, plasticky, that they, sing or say things,
Right. Right.
or
Right.
do a thing for you, but encourage more pretend play for this age. Play kitchen, play food, art supplies, just fabrics and dress up things that encourages imaginative pretend play is key
Sure.
for this age. So take a look at your space, declutter big time when the children are
Yes.
not there. If they're there, you cannot do that. It will be too
No.
upsetting for them.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right.
or you don't even have to get rid of them. Maybe you can put them in boxes, put in a storage, but really reevaluate your space, what you have. And maybe because the space has a lot to do with their creativity, how they're going to
Interesting.
use the space, or whether or not they're going to use the space.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they have a art table that has the not a gazillion crayons and markers and watercolors on it, but
Yeah.
instead you have only 10 crayons of 10
Yeah.
color, the less the better, trust me.
That's so
And
funny.
because if you have too many art supplies, she's not going to use any of them. But if you have just watercolor, she's going to use just watercolor and be engaged with that. But if you have too many options and choices, forget about it. It's going to be a mess, a disaster, and a child is not going to engage or play, and you're going to be disappointed and all of that. So I would encourage a little art space, because
Great.
children of that age are very creative and imaginative, but with less supplies. However, with accessibility. So she doesn't have to say, Mommy, can I take the brush? Mommy, can you give me paper? Mommy, if she's going to ask you for things, she's never
Mm-hmm.
going to use it freely. I think in order to encourage this creative, independent solo time, you have to have those supplies in less quantity and accessible for her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Great. We can do that.
And they have to be safe, obviously,
Right.
and she can make the mess. She can learn to be in charge of that space. And so it will encourage more of that independent play and art making. But art is one of the things that I would highly encourage, because it takes time for them to just, they get in the flow, they create. It's a fantastic thing during this quiet time.
Absolutely. We used to not do it during, in the morning when it was still a little cool and they would make a mess. So I took it all out. I was like, no more, but I can bring it back in. Yes. And I agree. It's just a little one who makes a mess, and she would really enjoy. Yeah. And we do play, like we do paint and draw when it's, when the little one naps, but it's usually a pain to get her out of the screen. So we can work on that. Yeah.
And the screen, you could, with that, I think the screen, don't pair with the nap time, because then it turns into a disaster. wakes the baby, her reactions and all of that. And some children do react to ending of the screen time like that. Not all children, but more sensitive children, perhaps. I don't know what's the scientific reason behind this, but I know a group of children who respond to ending of the screen time in this huge way. They're very emotional. They throw things, they kick. And we can talk about this, how you can end the screen time, maybe give a warning, maybe ease into it or whatever, to avoid that, to minimize that. And your reactions to it too, it can play a huge role. But since it's uncontrollable, you can't pair it with the nap time. So I would highly encourage rest time with nap time. And screen time, maybe you can use the screen time when you really need the break. But maybe the baby is doing her own thing. When can she use screen time then? Like taking a look at your day. If it's not the nap time, then when?
So we were doing it in the morning when the little one was sleeping, because so the little one is like sleeping a ton. Like she'll sleep like 14 or 15 hours a day, which is like a crazy amount. So we were doing it in the morning when the little one was sleeping. But again, it's like so hard to get her out of the screen time. So that's when we stopped it then. I find the screen so addictive that regardless of when we do it, it's like this very difficult thing to control. Mm-hmm. And so having like a very strict like rule of just one show, like a 20-minute show, is a lot easier than, okay, I guess you're going to play for 15 minutes and watch a show for 20 minutes. And then she ends up just like continuing somehow, like either one of us will go for a run or we'll be out and then we forget to take it away. And then it's just because then 2 hours later, she's had it for an extended period of time.
Okay, so how many screens she has access to? You mentioned the iPad. What other electronics do you have?
So my husband gave her his password, which I have not done. I'm like, no. My phone is my phone. You don't have access to my phone. Mm-hmm. She has this amazing memory, so she'll remember all the different passwords for all the screens. So she has an iPad, which we put away, but then she can take my husband's phone and open it freely, which is like,
oh
bad. God. Yeah, she'll start calling her family and,
What else? Does she watch TV also?
No, so I disconnected the TV months ago. I was just like, we can't.
See, you were able to do something drastic like that. So, okay. So now she has access to the iPad and his phone. What else?
That's it. And really the phone, it's not like she takes it all the time. Like it's usually during the little one's nap.
Mm-hmm. So I think, I know, and I think the listener already knows that setting a boundary with the password would be the number one thing. I mean, limiting access to electronics at this young age is key. Like even in my household, it's like my daughter doesn't have an iPad. That it's the many devices you have, the harder it gets to control all of them. So if you want your child to have screen time, which I am not against screen time, and she can have, but she has to have at least one device. Then it's easier for you to control, to keep track of, and all of that. Sure. And maybe he needs to change his password. You can have a conversation with him and never, ever give the password to the child again, because that's that consistency that I'm talking about. It's also boundaries. Like I talk about this with my daughter too. I have a password on my phone. My husband has a password on his phone. My daughter has a password on her phone. And none of us know each other's passwords. I don't know my daughter's password. We want to teach privacy, respect each other's space and boundaries. I think we need to take this seriously from this young age. Otherwise, what are we teaching? If she marries one day, and I know so many women who are like, I need to give me your phone, give me access to your email, give me to their husbands. That's not good, right? We want to have trust in people and respect each other's boundaries. So I think the easiest would be to just change the password. She will cry about it, but that's okay. You can handle that. And you don't want to give in after she cries.
Sure.
Know that you're teaching a bigger lesson than just making her placate in the moment and say, okay, here you go. Here, let me take the password off and you can have access to my phone. So that has to be a clear no. The phone is off limits. If it's off limits and you're okay with that, then you have to make it off limits. But if your husband finds it convenient sometimes and you guys are not going to be consistent, then that's not going to work. You see, this
Absolutely.
is why.
And I think that's the biggest challenge is that we both came from very different households. His family presumably didn't have rules. Like he has one brother, and his mother in particular was very lenient. Like there were no rules at home. Everything was allowed. They were like a very happy, jolly family. I don't understand how it works because my family was so much the opposite. But so he comes from this idea where there's no yelling, there's no arguments, everything's fabulous. And I'm just like, I don't understand how that's humanly possible. At least not with, I feel like girls in particular are so, I don't know. I don't know if it's different with boys or it was a different era, but I just can't imagine it.
Yes. So do you agree about the phone and the password and making that off limits to your daughter?
I do. And my phone is off limits. Like I don't give her my phone. But yeah, I can talk to him about it too. And it's funny because we use the passwords for, when we go, for locks and things. So it's really inappropriate, I think.
It is. And it also, if this is setting a trend, right? If your 4-year-old knows your husband's password, do you know your husband's password? Are you okay with her knowing his password? Also, knowing his password, she has access to his phone. And I'm assuming he's older, than your daughter, right? He gets ads, he has things on his phone.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that he might have. But yeah, I agree. And I can speak to him more. And I've talked to him about, changing and not giving it to her.
But he has to be on board with this.
Of course.
And if you're in a restaurant one day and she's melting down and then it has to be a hard no. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's a no, it's a no. It's a no forever with the iPhone, with the phone. That's the thing. Can you commit to that? Why is this important? If not, then maybe you can modify it. Maybe she will not know the password, but you guys can say, when we go out, or this is when you can use my phone. Maybe you can have a rule, because if it's not doable at all, right? Yeah. If you need that sometimes, I understand that too. So this is why you have to examine and discuss it with him.
Sure.
Maybe when he's somewhere with her and she's melting down or whatever, that's a last resort. He can unlock the phone himself and give it to her.
Right. And that's what I do sometimes. Absolutely. And that's what I do if she wants to call grandma or something like that, I will unlock it and then give it to her. But then I will take it back.
Yeah.
right after. I don't want her playing with my phone.
So that would be my first suggestion. Second, so you have the iPad. Can you put screen time on an iPad? Can you?
So I need to learn how to do that, because she just takes it. It's funny. I did that a while ago, and she just whenever she gets a message or anything, she just takes it out. She clicks it out. I'm like, what are you doing? It's incredible how kids learn these things.
They do, but still, you are the parent, and I think this is an area you need to exercise your leadership with confidence.
Absolutely,
right?
So I don't know if a screen time limit where it just turns off. It becomes it turns off.
I did this for my daughter for her iPhone. Yeah. I'm assuming iPad is an Apple device.
Yeah,
from your phone. You can watch a YouTube video how to set screen time limits on an iPad. I would assume it's the same as for an iPhone.
Yeah, I'll try it, because that would be wonderful. She gets a little reminder. I'm like, she just clicks it out. I'm like, that's not helpful.
No. I think you have to set screen limits. You can app limits. There's multiple options when you go explore. It's a fantastic tool, and I highly recommend. And that doesn't make you constantly be this watchdog and supervise her and say, it's time, you've been on it for too long. That takes that whole battle out of the picture.
That would be great.
You set the limits once and that's it. And you're confident that she has 20 minutes on this, 10 minutes on this. And after that, it's going to automatically turn off. And she may not like that. But again, we're going to talk about today about how to set the limit, how to hold the limit, and how to listen to the child's feeling when you do that. But first, we're discussing all of those areas where you need to set the limit.
Sure. And the other thing, the one other challenging is when the little one has something she wants. And so she'll just like take it off, take it away or hit her and then take it.
And where do you think she has learned that? Taking other people's things and not respecting other people's possessions or boundaries? When and how is she learning? By having access to your husband's phone and his password, right?
Yeah.
Because we teach that inadvertently when we say, this is daddy's phone, this is mommy's phone, and I have a password. And we protect that. They learn that people have space, privacy, limits, boundaries, possessions, and we need to respect them. But if we ourselves allow them to violate those like freely, how is she going to respect her sister's boundary, her sister's things, right? So by doing that, we're teaching them a bigger lesson.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So being clear on your whys when you say no is key. And before you say no, before you rush arbitrarily to say no to something, maybe you can pause in the moment and say, why am I saying no and not yes, right? That could be in the moment. But overall, I think it would be a good idea to sit down and reflect on your parenting and say, what are my general rules? What do I care about? What's a hard no for me? And why is that? If eating ice cream every day, I don't like that idea every evening, well, maybe I can modify that rule, because you have to look at the why behind it and examine your family values.
Like my big limit would be no hitting, but it's just so impossible to, enforce that. Like I'm usually coming at it afterwards, right? She already hit her sibling and.
I think no hitting. I'm in a favor of phrasing it more either positively or in a neutral way. No hitting does not teach me how to be gentle. I think I would say instead of no hitting, what can you use to communicate no hitting?
Use your words when you want something, or
this is how you can communicate. Well, like the sibling issue is a whole different topic.
Sure, and we don't need to.
But if you say no hitting, she's not going to learn no hitting. You have to teach the alternative. You have to facilitate the process of asking for the toy in a kinder way, in a respectful way. And it's like a constant practice between the siblings. And we have done a really good sibling episode. I'm not sure.
Yes, I need to.
Maybe you need to revisit that.
Yeah.
It's a great episode. I think we talked about those, and maybe there is another coaching episode I can't remember that talks about, again, sibling issues.
Sure.
How we can
revise it.
How we can facilitate this, because if you say don't hit, no hitting, you're not teaching the alternative, the acceptable way of behaving or what's desirable. And also in that moment, you have to pause and teach perspective taking. When you did that, how do you think she feels? You both wanted the toy. Like, it's a whole process, this sibling issue.
I find it to be the most challenging, but we can move away from that. Sorry.
Yes, we can move away from the sibling and stick with the setting limits.
Yes.
Right? So getting clear on your no's and when you're going to say no and when are you going to set limits is the number one task. And I think you can do that on your own a little bit later. You can reflect, maybe write down what's important to you, right? Your why of when and how you say no. But as a general rule of thumb is when it comes to children's health, number one, safety and security.
Sure.
Like moral issues, stealing, lying, things like that. or environment, when children are hurting trees or flowers outside, or you're in a store, they're ruining things, opening packages, environment and possessions. And this apply to you and other people.
Right. Those are very clear. Yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. So those are the 4 areas I usually ask parents to set limits. If you are in a store and your child is opening packages and ruining new products, you have to step in and say no to your child.
Of course.
Right? You're not going to say, oh, she's just exploring. She's, or when it comes to their health, you as a parent have to be in charge. If it's a no about sugary drinks, it has to be a hard no. You can't say, or if it's a rule that we only drink such and such during holidays, like you can have your rule around it.
Yeah.
And the safety and security of your child and other people's safety and security. If your child is outside in a playground and she is playing with rocks and then picks up a rock and throws at other children, that's a safety issue for other children, other people. So you have to step in as a parent and set the limit. So those are those 4 areas that are so like clear-cut areas.
Yes.
To guide you to be clear on your no's.
Right.
So when we set the limit, it depends how we set it, what kind of tone we use. Are we angry when we set the limit? Are we reactive? And it doesn't have to be, right? We can communicate our limit in a very calm and clear, concise way. I think we don't always, it's like we have learned from our parents or from the past that limits have been set with like, it's my way or the highway, and there's always yelling, there is always this harsh way, but it doesn't have to be. Our children don't have to associate reactivity with setting limits, because when we set it with this reactive way, they push back, they don't like that. So then it turns into a power struggle. Right? How you set the limit, how you communicate that no is key. You don't have to be angry when you say, no, you can't do that. Remember, you cannot touch that. Your tone and your words matter.
Of course. And then, so Camila, our eldest, started to yell back, stop, 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 when we say, set a limit, and she won't stop saying it. And it's like, well, I'm not saying anything. I'm not doing anything. What is that? You want me to stop? But it's so challenging.
And your how matters a lot. And when you set the limit, your child is not going to like it, and they may have tears, pushback. So that's expected part of this setting limits process. And with time, it's going to get better. They're going to internalize your no's, your values, your boundaries, your limits. But you have to be consistent in how you do this process. And you have to you have to hold the limit too. You set the limit. I wish you can do that, but I'm afraid this is how it is. We're going to do this. We're not going to go outside right now, or something like that. And the child has feelings. You're a bad mommy. You're mean, whatever. You're going to disengage with those reactions. You're going to be empathetic and compassionate with your child. Listen, be present with the feelings, but you're not going to say, don't say that, that's not nice, or argue or give in. You're going to stay calm and strong and state your limit a few times if needed. You're going to hold the limit and continue being present and listening to your child. And eventually your child will not cry. I'm not saying you neglect your child. You say, go to your room, punish your child. No, you're there when she's having this emotional reaction. You're compassionate.
It's hard though, because crying to me seems easy, like comforting someone who's crying, but when it's rage or, like hitting or throwing things, that's when it's a lot more challenging to know how to control it.
Yes.
It's almost like we want to make it stop. Like, this is not okay.
I agree. I think, no, the imperative shouldn't be to stop. I think what's key here is how can you bring that mad child to sad? Because like you said, having a sad child is a lot easier to dish out compassion and be with than with an angry kid. You're going to be just angry and want to stop. So how can you in that moment see that the child is hurting. The child needs help. The child is angry because she's frustrated. What
Yeah.
is the emotion that's driving this anger, underneath this anger? And you could say something. Maybe we can use an example. That's very frustrating. That makes you angry when mommy said that. When I said you cannot do that, makes you very angry. And so you can validate or say something like that. Reflect
And when I do,
back.
she yells, "Stop."
And
Like whatever I
you
say.
can say you want mommy to stop because you don't like when mommy says that. You are upset. You are such and such, and so you sort of go with the flow like that to collect your child. And when they
Okay.
become upset, you can offer more compassion and hold them, hug them, sit with them, look at them, whatever they will allow for them to cry and just get that out of their system. But holding that limit and not getting angry as you hold the limit is also important.
Yeah.
Know that you are also learning and you're also teaching. You stated your limit. I wish we can do this, but I'm afraid we can't. A big reaction, kick and scream.
Right.
And now you listen to the feelings or just offer this validation in some kind of verbal way, and you stay there, but you don't lose your composure. You say, you know what, I'm doing this setting limit part step by step, and then listen more. And then when she's maybe sad, you listen some more and state the limit. And after it's over, you will know when it's over, when the child changes the subject, when the child offers a solution, when the child has an insight or an idea, then you know that the process has ended.
Yeah.
And I don't want the parent to rush the process and say, now let's go have some ice cream in midway or halfway. Child have not completed this process.
Sure.
Do
But when there's a safety risk, when they're hitting and throwing and doing things, how do you recommend?
You interfere. I think you interfere. You can hold the hand gently if your child is throwing something and it's going to have some dangerous effect,
Or break
right?
something.
Break something. You can take you can say, I know you're mad and you're about to throw this, but I need to take this away from your hand. And you just take the thing away from the hand. Or if she's punching and kicking you, you can just contain your child in a, again, gentle way, not like in a harsh way. You can say, you're so mad. You just want to kick mommy and hit mommy. You just verbalize what they're going through. Maybe observe, and hold their hand. But your facial expression has to be more empathetic and compassionate. If you do this in an angry way, it will exacerbate the situation.
Absolutely, it's just so hard not to get upset when And I tend to say, I can see you're upset, but you can't hit. And I guess you're proposing.
Maybe even don't say anything in that moment. I think I wouldn't speak much in those moments because then it's going to further trigger the child. You can just even non-verbally take the thing that she's about to throw away, or you can just say it, or you can just say it depends in what state your child is. Can you go outside in that moment and sit on the step outside on the stoop and just take this elsewhere, or change the environment or move or whatever? How do you usually set the limit? Let me ask you that. What does that process look like?
Sure. So, if it's like a screen time, we'll say, okay, you have 5 more minutes. When the show's over, we're going to turn it off. And then usually it doesn't go so poorly, but sometimes she just loses it and just starts screaming when the show is over and we take it off. Or we say, okay, do you want to give it? Do you want to give the iPad to us, or do you want us to take it?
No. Yes. No, you see what I mean? If I am the child and I am enjoying this iPad and my mom comes and says, do you want to give the iPad to me? Of course not. Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? It has to be, it's not the question. It's an instruction, or it's an agreement. Also, maybe you have 5 more minutes. That's not going to work. But I think Did you agree with your child ahead of time that when the show is over, mommy gonna come and turn off the TV or the
Yeah.
iPad?
Yeah.
Did you agree upon ahead
Yes.
of
Yes. And she
time?
usually says yes, but then when it's the time, it's usually she's not ready.
Of course, she's only 4. So if you make the agreement like such, you're allowed to watch one show, but when the show is about to end, I'm going to come and remind you. And what are you going to do? Are you going to turn it off yourself, or mommy is going to turn it off? Sort of make her part of this ending process. How you discuss
Sure.
it ahead of time. How do you want her to respond? Can I count on you to turn it off yourself? How are you going to know when it's time to end? When the show ends, can you turn it off yourself? Something like that. So to make her aware of this,
Okay.
I think that's one thing I will try. It may not work. It works with older kids.
Yeah.
I would try with the 4-year-old.
It's funny. Is 4-year-olds a particularly challenging age, or is it
I think
in the
it's
circumstances?
I think it's the hardest age. Having a
It is.
12-year-old and knowing about child psychology, I think it's the hardest age. They're very emotional, right?
Yes.
Very right brain oriented, dominant and everything is going to be super emotional. So knowing
funny.
that you have to be regulated and calm, especially when you set limits and when you listen to their feelings, you don't want to take it personally, because you're doing parenting. You can't take those things personally in the moment.
Sure.
That's the hardest part, I think, for us to be more regulated, because you're helping them learn new and important skills.
Yeah.
Right. So you come and you say 5 minutes, and then when she rages or she has a strong reaction, how do you handle that part?
Well, then it's very challenging because she gets very, very angry.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll throw things. She'll start like kicking or hitting us or trying to like pinch us. It's like, where did she learn all these things?
This primal survival.
Yeah.
When people get dysregulated, it's just that primal, survival defensiveness kicks in. It's a stress response, right?
Yes. It's so hard.
They immediately retrieve to that.
Yes.
But we have to teach them the skills, right? This is the time to teach them those important skills: frustration tolerance, handling reactivity, learning to be calm, learning. And then I think once you do this stuff that we're talking about, like the next chapter, the next lesson I want for you to learn after you master this would be, how can you teach your child mindfulness, coping mechanism, coping skills, more independent things that she can do when she's angry, like breathing exercises, yoga poses, starting with those things. But I think you're not ready yet for that, because starting early, from age 4, giving them a choice, that they have a choice over their emotions, that emotions are not forever, they're fleeting. I think that would be my next lesson to teach your 4-year-old.
Yeah. Do you have any particular resources that you would recommend for that?
Yes, there is a couple of podcast episodes that is helpful. I can't remember the titles.
Sure, I can go through it. Thank you.
I will post it in the Facebook group, or I will link it up in the show notes, or I will send it to you by email. I think the one with Maureen Healy, How to Raise Emotionally Healthy Children, is a good episode. Another one is with Peter Moses. He teaches mindfulness to young children. He has some great suggestions and ideas. It's a very practical episode. There is a couple of more episodes. And there is a good YouTube channel called Cosmic Kids that they do yoga.
She likes
that they have that.
Yes.
There is a bunch of resources. There's
wonderful.
You can. All I want is to have this mindset of teaching our children skills, building skills, because if they lack the skill, we need to work on teaching them the skill, as opposed to getting angry that they don't have the skill,
Absolutely.
and empowering children. That's where I stand, because you don't want your child to be a slave of their emotions. You want to teach them self-regulation, emotion regulation, frustration tolerance from a young age. And those are all skills, step by step, you want to teach them. But before we get to that, as I said, the second chapter, we need to learn how to set the limits and things like that, right? This is like,
Wonderful.
and in order to teach those other skills.
Sure.
And so when your child is reactive and it's hard for you in that moment, what happens next? How does she calm down?
So one of us, either my partner or I, will hold her, which is hard because sometimes it feels like we're restraining her, which is not the goal. And she'll start like saying, I can't breathe, or stop, or it's just I feel like, oh my goodness, our neighbors must think that we are like abusing her. It's like awful to hear. But then eventually she'll stop, she'll calm down, and then she'll come to me and I'll hug her for, a long time. And then I won't say anything. I'll just hug her. And then that will be it.
And you don't discuss, I think it would be good to also go back when she's calm, or go back and sort of revisit what happened and how it happened and how everybody reacted. And what can we learn for the next time? Just a very debriefing, not like a long moralizing the child type of way, but so that the child can learn and see what has happened and not be further confused, or, I think that would be good to just revisit, why mommy yelled or got angry. This is what happened. And how did you respond? And how can we
in the past when I've tried to talk about it, she'll yell, like she'll get very reactive and it's like, yell, stop, I don't want to talk about it. And so it's just, it's challenging to know and what.
It has to be very, very after the event.
Yes.
It could be even before bedtime, not like right after. And you have to do it very superficially, not in a deep dive, let's lecture and moralize you, and not in that kind of way. But as a matter of fact, like, this is what happened. Like, tell a story way, but very briefly, so that we know what's happening in our life, but we're not shaming and guilting and moralizing children for their mistakes or things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But maybe going over the day before bed, you can say, what was the best memorable moment of the day for you? What was special today about the day? Oh, and maybe something negative that happened, if you want to discuss. If they talk about their day, maybe that will show up. You can find a way to do that. But so when it comes to setting limits, where do you see your challenge is, your biggest challenge? Is it finding the right tone and voice and language to set the limit, holding the limit, or listening to the child's feelings? I
think setting the tone without, like, not waiting until I'm very upset, and instead saying it when I'm calm and can tolerate a little bit more, because then it comes across as this like angry mom who is, can't tolerate this. And I think, which is hard because sometimes things move very quickly. And so,
give me an example. Like what?
Like sometimes she'll take something out of the fridge or like open the freezer and grab something. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like now they're having ice cream for breakfast.
But you have to set but okay. So are they allowed to fetch a snack during the day for themselves at all? Like, what's your rule around snack time?
Well, so now Camila just like takes her stool and goes up on the kitchen counter and grabs things. And it's like not ideal. But again, it's like, is that really something that is worth a fight? I don't know.
Yes. I think if you don't want her to go and grab an ice cream for breakfast, yes, you have to maybe make it clear what the expectation is.
Yeah.
If it's only for breakfast, maybe then, I have to give you breakfast. Maybe in that moment, if you don't want her to eat the ice cream and it's too late, she put the stool and she took the ice cream out of the fridge, knowing like what you know now about this process, what we just discussed, how would you handle it, for example?
it's hard because do I like take it away? And then I'm teaching her that if she doesn't like something, she can just take it away. I don't know. So I'll say, I see that you're eating this ice cream.
Oh, so she's now eating. It's way too late.
Like she's just very quick. She'll just like open the freezer and grab a spoon and like just take it.
Is she allowed to open the freezer at any time? Or you see, that's the thing. I think as a parent, you have to be clear on those things.
Absolutely. And so, and those have been the challenges because things, with kids, you learn on the go, right? It's not,
of course,
they try things anew every day.
And the best part is you can modify. It's not like a hard rule. You decided today that this is going to be it. You can modify a lot of things as you go.
Yeah.
If she took the ice cream, in its morning, and you don't like her eating ice cream in the morning, well, you may have to take it away so that she can learn that this, and it's not going to be a harsh way. That's what I'm saying. How you set the limit is key. You don't have to come and say, "How dare you give that to me? You cannot eat that," and slam the refrigerator door. You don't want to be so demonstrative and very harsh. You can say, "Oh," you can be humorous. You can say, "Oh, look at you. You climbed all the way to just get ice cream for breakfast. Wouldn't it be cool that we can eat ice cream for breakfast, right? Oh, but we're going to eat breakfast instead, sweetheart, and take the ice cream and put it back." And then a positive language. We can have ice cream for a snack after lunch. Would that be cool? And see, it's like your child may not be as happy, but you came in as a parent, you set the limit because it's important to you. You don't want ice cream for breakfast. Oh, she's here.
She's here.
You know what I mean? When I described that, how did you feel in that moment? Can you do that?
Absolutely. I think, finding those playful ways would be much more effective than my like, "Oh no, this isn't." Yes, I can totally try that.
I think people think that setting limits requires like stern tone, strictness, harshness, but it doesn't have to be, especially with young children. Playfulness, humor, creativity goes along the way. And some days breaking the rules is fun too. If it's too late, if she's eating the ice cream, some days you can say, "You know what? How about we break the rules and have ice cream for breakfast on Sunday?" And your child will say, "Okay," she's not going to cry and push back to your limit, but you set the limit nevertheless. Do you see the difference? You didn't say, "No, you can't have the ice cream." You can playfully guide them in that moment. And always remember positive language, neutral language. I don't like when people use a lot of negative language when they say no or communicate their limits to their children, because then we internalize and associate it with negativity, which is not good. And no wonder we get pushback. Right? Because it does sound negative. In a humorous way, in a playful way, you can say, "Oh, it looks like someone wants ice cream for breakfast. Who is that who wants ice cream for breakfast?" And you can have a little playful moment there. I think I would love for you to try and explore that.
Sure. That sounds wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, as we finish our call, I was dominating the conversation, but I want to give you the chance to say, what are your takeaways? What resonates with you? And can you set limits differently from now on?
Absolutely. I like the playfulness. I find it's so funny. I feel like so burned out at this point as a mom that it's become a lot more, I guess, strict. I don't want to say strict, but I need to bring back some humor to our days because otherwise it's a lot more challenging. So, and I think my daughters will appreciate the positiveness or the humor into my speech, which lately it's been a lot more like stern than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yes. How about encouraging more independent playtime, as we discussed in the beginning?
Yes, absolutely. I think that I can totally do as well, and just decluttering and donating things is, something that I always want to do. And I want to do like all the time with kids who accumulate a lot of stuff. But I think making that a goal, especially if it can help us, would be great.
Mm-hmm. And before we end our call, I would love for you to just let's end on a positive note. I would love for you to give yourself credit for the hard work of parenthood and mothering. Mention 5 things that you are doing for your children that that you're proud of, that you're great at, that you give yourself credit for.
So I take them out every day. So we've been going to a lake that's close to us, and we go, they love that, and going to running in the grass or going out for scooters with their scooters.
Mm-hmm.
And I cook and I put them to naps and sleep. And it's so much. I know I do a lot.
I'll put all of that under one umbrella: taking care of and caregiving. Give me 4 others.
Cuddling, is that one?
Yes. Yes. No, you don't have, there is no judgment,
Yeah.
That's the thing. It has to come from your heart, and you have to take pride in the things that you do, with your children, for your children. Give credit. It's not an easy thing.
It's not. And I feel like I fall in love with them every day. Like I'm like angry, and then I'm like, okay, I guess they're quite fabulous in their own ways. I don't know. 5, it seems like a lot. If it's not just,
you see? Yeah. So that's your task and your challenge, on top of setting limits, to think about this and maybe discuss it with your husband. And here is what I know. When you ask your husband, give yourself credit. If you ask your husband the same question, he will have no problem coming up with 5 things. And from my experience of doing this work with parents, his things are going to be very deep and meaningful. From my experience, this is what happens when I ask these questions to women and when I ask this question to men, to dads.
Yeah.
Yes. Ask him the question and see it for yourself. And so this is why, even more so, moms need to give themselves credit for the hard work of parenting. You need to acknowledge your little wins, the little things and the big things that you do for your children. You have to take pride in those things.
Sure.
So that's your challenge, on top of setting limits. We'll keep in touch.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful, Anna. I love speaking with you. I'm glad
Me too. Great. Thank you so much.
I truly appreciate it. Take care.
You too.